Hello everyone, I am Dr. Munish Kumar Bharadwaj from School of Engineering and Technology of IGNOU. Today we will be discussing admixtures in concrete. In previous lecture, we introduced this topic and we discussed some of the admixtures in concrete, in which we included accelerators, retarders and grouting admixtures. Now we will discuss some other admixtures in which we will include air entraining admixtures, air detraining admixtures, gas forming admixtures and expansion producing admixtures. So let us begin with first air entraining admixtures. What are air entraining admixtures? These admixtures introduce a small amount of air in the fresh concrete. This air is known as entrained air. Entrained air is minute spherical bubbles of size ranging from 5 microns to 80 microns distributed evenly in the entire mass of the concrete. Means these admixtures will produce air inside the concrete size ranging from 5 micron to 80 microns and evenly distributed in the whole concrete mass. Entrained air bubbles lubricate the concrete. How? The bubbles act like ball bearings. As you see in the ball, what is the action of ball bearing? It reduces friction between the mechanical parts, moving mechanical parts. So similar action is done by these bubbles introduced by the entrained air. So these bubbles act like ball bearing and help in rolling one aggregate particle over the other instead of sliding as occur in normal cases, and hence improve the workability of concrete. Normally what happens, aggregates slides one over the other. But because of the introduction of these air bubbles, now aggregates, instead of sliding, they are now rolling one over the other. So that way friction is reduced and hence the workability of the concrete mix increases. Entrained air bubbles reduce the capillary forces in concrete as the capillaries are interrupted by relatively large air voids in air entrained concrete. So here it is also reducing the capillarities in the concrete. Air voids are not air connected. So you see here that it is very important that though air voids are there, but these are not interconnected. Because if air voids are interconnected, then they will form a channel and then the concrete will become permeable. So here air voids are not interconnected, hence capillary forces of water diminishes as soon as it encounters with such air voids. So because these air voids are not interconnected, so if any water penetrates into the concrete, so this water will not move through the concrete because these air voids are not interconnected, hence they are not forming a continuous channel. So now let us see what are different types of air entraining agents which are used. The compound used as air entraining agents are natural wood resins, animal and vegetable fats and oils such as tallow, olive oil and their fatty acids such as stearic acid and oleic acid. Various wetting agents such as alkali salts or sulfated and sulfonated organic compounds are also used as air entraining agents. Water soluble soaps of resin acids and animal and vegetable fatty acids are also used as air entraining agents. Some other materials which are used as air entraining agents are sodium salts of petroleum sulfonic acids and also hydrogen peroxide and aluminium powder. So these are some other materials which are used as air entraining agents. Now let us see what are different factors affecting the amount of air entrainment. That by using the air entraining agents, what will be the amount of air entrained in the concrete? This is affected by various factors, and these factors are: number one, type and quantity of air entraining agent. That which type of air entraining agent we are using and what amount of air entraining agent we are using. So on that, the amount of air entrained in the concrete will depend. So different type of air entraining agent will produce different quantity of air entrainment depending upon their capability to reduce surface tension of water. More the air entraining agent, more will be the entrained air. So that way quantity affects the amount of air entrained in the concrete. Second factor is water cement ratio of the mix. Very less quantity of water will not produce adequate foaming, while very large quantity of water will diffuse the air bubbles. So that way we have to be careful that quantity of water should not be very less, and also at the same point of time it should not be very large, because in both the cases it is not helping us in the proper air entrainment for the reasons stated here. Generally, water cement ratio between 0.4 to 0.55 is found to be optimum. Next factor is type and grading of aggregate. Air entrainment found to increase with increase in fineness modulus of fine aggregates up to 2.5, and thereafter with further increase in fineness modulus it is decreased abruptly. So here we have to be very careful about the fineness modulus of the fine aggregate, because up to certain limit of fineness modulus only the air entrainment is increasing, and beyond that limit this is decreasing abruptly. Then fine aggregate fraction between 300 to 150 micron size found to have large influence in air entrainment. More this size of fraction, more will be the air entrainment. So if we have the more amount of fine aggregate within this range of size of 300 micron to 150 micron, then we can entrain more air in the concrete. Then another factor is mixing time. How it affects? Less mixing time will result in less air entrainment, while more mixing time will lead to loss of air entrainment. So here also we have to adhere to some optimum mixing time, because as you see here that the less mixing time will not produce the enough air or will not entrain enough air, whereas if you are taking more time in mixing, then there will be loss of the air entry. So here what is the optimum mixing time then? Optimum mixing time is taken as 1.5 to 2 minutes, means 1.5 minute to the 2 minutes is taken as the optimum time for mixing of the concrete. Another factor is type of cement. So here the type of cement also affects the amount of air entrained. Air entraining agent should not react with cement. This is the first requirement. However, the alkali content in cement has great influence in air entrainment. More the alkali content, higher is the air entrainment. So that way the type of cement affect the amount of air entrained in the concrete. So after discussing the different factors that affect the air entrainment, now let us see the effect of air entrainment on properties of concrete. First effect we see the increased resistance to freezing and thawing. The pore structure of air entrained concrete is largely different from ordinary concrete without air entrainment. Due to minute bubbles distributed evenly over the volume of concrete, the increase in volume of water during formation of ice is absorbed by void spaces created by air entrainment. Even though total air voids in air entrained concrete is large, the voids are in the form of minute discrete bubbles. They are not interconnected. Hence reduces the tendency to form large crystals of ice in the concrete. So this way it helps. Air entrainment in concrete increases the resistance by about 3 to 7 times in such situations. So this is the advantage here of using the air entrainment in concrete. Now we will see the figures which will depict the increase in resistance to freezing and thawing by use of air entrainment. In first figure, we see the resistance to freezing and thawing, and in this figure you see on x-axis cycles of freezing and thawing are shown, number of cycles, and on y-axis percentage loss in weight is shown. And here you see in this figure two curves are there. The upper curve is for plain concrete and the lower curve is for air entrained concrete. Here in this figure, percentage loss in weight is shown against number of cycles of freezing and thawing given in 1% calcium chloride solution for both plain concrete and concrete with 5% air entrainment. So these curves, two curves are showing. One above, the upper one is for plain concrete with calcium chloride solution. The lower one is air entrained concrete. So here you see that as the number of cycles of freezing and thawing increases, the percentage loss in weight is more for plain concrete in comparison to the air entrained concrete. So this figure shows that there is an advantage of using air entrained concrete in case of freezing and thawing process. Now second curve here shows you the number of cycles of freezing and thawing required to produce failure in the specimen with different air content and for different cement content. So there are 4 curves for different cement content, but now we are focusing here for the air entrainment, advantage of air entrainment. So on x-axis you see here in this figure air content in percent, and on y-axis you see here the cycles of freezing and thawing. So that way you see from the two figures the advantage of air entrainment in conditions of freezing and thawing in concrete. Now let us see another effect, and this effect is effect of air entrainment on workability. How workability is affected by air entrainment. So the introduction of air entrainment improves the workability of concrete. Placeability of air entrained concrete is much superior than concrete without air entrainment. And as I explained you, why the workability is increasing? Because due to air entrainment, the bubbles are introduced in the concrete, and these air bubbles are working as the ball bearing. And now instead of sliding of aggregate one over the other, now the action is the rolling of aggregate one over the other. So due to this process, now the friction is reduced between the aggregates, and here hence the workability is increasing. Here if we see that 70 mm slump air entrained concrete is much superior than 120 mm slump non-air entrained concrete. So you know that higher the slump, higher the workability. But here you see that we are comparing the two concretes. One is having 70 mm slump but air entrained. Another is 120 mm slump but without any air entrainment. So if we are comparing these two concrete, though the 120 mm slump is having higher slump, but it is without air entrainment, but it will be having less workability. So far as the placeability is concerned, and that placeability we are considering in difficult situations like thin long sections or sections congested with reinforcement. So in such situations, the 70 mm slump concrete with air entrainment is superior than the 120 mm slump non-air entrained concrete. This also leads to producing a homogeneous concrete free from segregation, bleeding and honeycomb. So these three defects of concrete can be avoided or can be reduced, and we will get a homogeneous concrete by using the air entrainment. Concrete containing entrained air is more plastic and fatty. Workability of the mix increases with increase in air entrainment. 5% air may increase the compacting factor by 0.07, and corresponding increase in slump would be from 12 to 50 mm. So this is the effect how the entrained air affect the workability of concrete, and that we see here how the compacting factor of the concrete increases by air entrainment, and also how the slump also increases with air entrainment. Increase in the workability is greater for wetter mixes than for drier ones, and for leaner mixes than the richer mixes. Means increase in workability of leaner mixes will be more in comparison to the richer mixes, and if we are considering the wetness of the mix, then increase in workability will be more for wetter mixes than for the drier ones. Increase of workability is greater for angular aggregate than for rounded aggregate. So this we are seeing the effect here of the shape of the aggregate, that air entrainment will cause more increase in workability in case of the angular aggregates than in comparison to the rounded aggregates, because the more problem of workability is there with the angular aggregate. Now let us see the effect of air entrainment on strength. How strength is affected by the air entrainment. Air entrainment introduces air voids and hence logically will reduce strength, because more voids are there, then strength will be less. A decrease in strength of 5.5% has been found for each percent of air entrainment. But for given workability, the water cement ratio in case of air entrained concrete can be reduced, which will lead to the increase in strength. So here you see that air voids are decreasing the strength, but here on another point we are gaining something. We are gaining something in the terms of that water cement ratio is now being reduced. So that way it will cause the increase in the strength. In most cases where there is a scope to reduce the water cement ratio, this increase in strength reported to be higher than 5.5% loss of strength due to incorporation of each percent of air entrainment, and that way we finally gain in case of strength by introducing the air in the concrete. Now let us see now the effect of air entrainment of permeability. How permeability of concrete is affected by the air entrainment. Air entrainment reduces the capillary forces of percolating water. How? By interrupting the capillary channels by relatively large voids. Also, greater density and uniformity of concrete with entrained air due to its increased workability and modified pore structure leads to improvement of permeability characteristics of the concrete. Possible reduction in water cement ratio is also one of the factors for reduced permeability. Now let us see effect of air entrainment on other properties of the concrete. Air entrainment reduces segregation, bleeding and consequent formation of latents. The bubbles decreases the effective area through which the draining of water is possible. Bubbles increase mutual adhesion between cement and aggregate. So that way, because of increased adhesion, the segregation is reduced. Air entrainment lowers permeability and absorption, and hence air entrained concrete will be more resistant to chemicals like sulfate and chlorides. Air entrainment also reduces unit weight of concrete, because when we are constructing the structures with concrete, then one concern is the weight of the material. So because it increases the self load or the self weight of the members. So that way we are gaining here something in the terms that by air entrainment we are reducing the unit weight of the concrete. Now let us focus on doses of air entrainment, that how much dose should be given, how much amount should be added to the concrete. Doses of air entrainment depends on many factors like purpose for which concrete is used, then climatic conditions, then maximum size of aggregate, and also the richness of the mix. In general, for mass concreting, air entrainment should be low, that is 2 to 3%, while in case of thin sections where placeability is difficult, the same can be increased to 5 to 6%. So that way the conditions where the concrete is to be used now is governing the amount of air entrainment. For reinforced concrete of relatively high cement content, the limit would be between 3 to 4%. In any case, air entrainment should not be less than 2% and also not more than 6%. Now let us move to another type of admixture, that is air detraining admixture. Till now we were discussing air entraining admixture, where we are adding air to the concrete. Now it is a reverse thing. Now we are going to discuss the air detraining admixture. An air detraining agent can be used to dissipate excess air or other gases. What are the different air detraining agents? We can use tri-N-butyl phosphate. We can use water soluble alcohols. We can use silicones. Now let us move to gas forming admixtures. What are these gas forming admixtures? These are the admixtures which, when mixed with fresh concrete, reacts with hydroxides present in the cement and forms minute bubbles of hydrogen. Sometimes nascent oxygel releasing substances can be used to form gas in plastic concrete. Formation of these gases uniformly in the plastic mass of concrete causes slight expansion in plastic concrete, which reduces the cracks and voids created due to normal settlement of concrete during placement. So this is the advantage. This expansion reduces bleeding and is beneficial in improving the effectiveness of grout for filling joints and improving homogeneity of grouted concrete. The expansion also helps in filling blackouts and openings in concrete structure. It improves the intimacy of contact of the paste with adjacent concrete or aggregate particles, as well as with embedded steel reinforcing bars. So here we see that it is improving the intimacy of contact, means the bonding between the adjacent aggregate and the paste, as well as the paste and the embedded steel in the reinforcing bar. Aluminium powder is used most commonly as gas forming agent. Hydrogen gas is produced due to reaction of aluminium with calcium hydroxide. The extent of gas produced depends on the type and amount of aluminium powder, number 1. Number 2, fineness. Number 3, chemical composition of cement. Number 4, temperature. And also it depends on mix proportion. The dose of aluminium powder varies between 0.005 to 0.02% by weight of cement. So this is the doses of aluminium powder which we can use. Larger doses may be used for production of lightweight concrete. How it will become light? Because more gas introduced, so it will make the concrete light. Extent and duration of gas production also depend on temperature. For example, gas formation starts at the time of mixing and is completed in 30 minutes at 38 degrees centigrade, while it may take several hours to complete the reaction at 4 degrees centigrade. Means higher the temperature, means now the gas formation will be completed within less time. Lower the temperature, it will take more time for the gas formation. Hence, in hot weather action of aluminium powder, may occur too quickly and it is beneficial action may be lost. Means what is the meaning of this? Because here in hot weather the gas formation will be done very quickly, but it may be lost before concrete is being used in the sense that placement and compaction is done. So here that beneficial action of gas formation is lost. So means here I want to stress that this action of gas formation should not be very quick. In cold weather, action will be slower and may not progress to desired extent before the concrete has set. So in cold weather, the other problem will be that gas formation will be very slow, and by the time we are placing and compacting the concrete, the complete gas formation is not done. So here again it is of no use. So that way that rate of gas formation should be optimum, so that this is done at an accurate time when the placing and compaction of concrete is being done. The effect on the strength of concrete depends to large extent on the restraint offered to expansion. Means if we are providing some restraints to expansion of the concrete, then the effect on the strength of concrete depends to large extent on the restraint offered to expansion of the concrete. With complete restraint imposed, the strength is not affected appreciably with very small amounts of aluminum powder. It is therefore important that the forms be tight and the grout is completely confined to get the full advantage of this gas formation. The form should be tight and the grout is completely confined. Aluminum powder has a tendency to float in water, and hence it is to be premixed with fine sand in dry condition, and then this mixture is added into the mixture. Means it is the process that how aluminum powder should be introduced. Aluminum powder should not be added to water. What will happen? It will float on the water. So what we do basically, that it is added to the dry sand in dry condition, and then this mixture is added to the mixture. Zinc and magnesium powders are also used for this purpose, while hydrogen peroxide and bleaching powder can be used in combination to produce oxygen instead of hydrogen bubbles in concrete. So we saw that aluminium, zinc and magnesium powders can be used to produce hydrogen in the concrete, whereas the hydrogen peroxide and bleaching powder can be used to introduce oxygen in the concrete. Now let us move to expansion producing admixtures. Expansion producing admixtures may react with ingredients of concrete and produce a expansive product, or may themselves expand when mixed along with concrete constituents. So they cause expansion of the concrete. The magnitude of this expansion can be adjusted so that the expansion and the subsequent shrinkage of concrete are numerically equal, because on drying concrete will shrink. So here the magnitude of this expansion can be adjusted so that the expansion and the subsequent shrinkage of concrete are numerically equal. Such concrete may be called as shrinkless concrete. Means if the expansion and shrinkage both are equated, so such concrete will be called as the shrinkless concrete. However, magnitude of expansion may be made larger than drying shrinkage, and in such cases a residual compressive stress will remain even after drying shrinkage has occurred in the concrete. This concrete is known as self-stressing concrete, and compressive stress introduced in them may well compensate for tensile stresses that would otherwise manifest themselves as tensile strain and possibly as cracks, because tensile stresses called the tensile strains, and also this may introduce the cracking in the concrete. So this self-stressing concrete and this concrete, which is known as the self-stressing concrete, and compressive stresses induced in this concrete can compensate for the tensile stress. The performance of these concretes on a limited scale has been found to be encouraging, and there is a good prospect of using such concrete in pre-stress concrete. Now let us see what expansion agents we can use. First agent is granulated iron and the chemicals. Another one is anhydrous sulfoaluminate. Also we can use granulated iron and chemicals. Granulated iron and chemicals promote oxidation of iron, resulting in the formation of iron oxide, which occupies an increased solid volume. Because of this iron oxide, volume increases, so it causes the expansion in the concrete. The expanding agent is also obtained by burning a mixture of gypsum, bauxite and chalk, which form calcium sulfate and calcium aluminate. In the presence of water, these compounds react to form calcium sulfoaluminate hydrate with an accompanying expansion of the paste. A stabilizer, which is a blast furnace slag, may sometimes be used to take up excess calcium sulfate and bring expansion to an end, because we cannot allow unlimited expansion. So we can use a stabilizer, which is blast furnace slag is there. So this way we discuss 4 type of admixtures here. First one, air entaining admixtures, then second was air detaining admixtures, then third one was gas forming admixtures, and last one was the expansion production admixtures. Some other type of admixtures we will discuss in our next lecture. So thank you for watching.